గుడ్ మార్నింగ్. నేను ఇంకేం చెప్పడం మొదలెట్లే, అప్పుడే తలగా. Small few topics today. I wouldn't take longer. I didn't want to disappoint the crowd by not allowing you to see me today. Then I thought I would make it short. And we will also have a couple of small videos today. I think that would leave you on a savoring mode. We will do two small topics in family. Can I start, sir, madam? First, we would have a look at the typologies thing that I am sure you must have got. Anybody who has got? Not got. 1, 2. కాబట్టి నేను చెప్తాను, మీరు వినండి. ఓకే, చూడాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు కదా. టీచర్లు నాలాగుంటే ఎంత బాగుంటుంది అసలు. ఆల్ అకామిడేటివ్. As I was telling you in the other class, మాస్టరు పిల్లలు, as I was telling you in the other class, this can be one 20 marker typological study of family. Meaning you are actually defining what family is. Popularly you take Peter Murdoch's definition. The two people, children, residents, economy, etc., etc. And then I am talking about, మళ్ళీ చెప్తాను వినని వాళ్ళ కోసం, because you are busy, engrossed, ఎక్స్చేంజింగ్ ప్లెజెంట్రీస్. ఎంతో కాలం తర్వాత, చాలా సంవత్సరాల తర్వాత కలిసినట్టుగా కలుస్తారు ప్రతి ఉదయం కూడా. అదే ఆలింగనాలు, అదే ఇంకేమన్నా. నేను ఐ డోంట్ వాంట్ టు ఫిల్. సో ఐ వాజ్ టాకింగ్ అబౌట్ దిస్. వాట్ వాజ్ దట్? టైపోలాజికల్ స్టడీ ఆఫ్ ఫ్యామిలీ. దట్స్ ఎ క్వశ్చన్ ఫర్ 20 marker. I tried to list in the document various criteria based on which families can be categorized and studied. So I was saying that you can better start with any definition of your liking. Generally I prefer Peter Murdoch's definition because that is not simply popular, that is easy to remember, no controversies generally. So you pick him up and then say that there are various criteria based on which families can be categorized. Sir, what you should be doing, it is something like, suppose I am taking marriage. Based on marriage, families can be of different types. If marriage is monogamous, it's a monogamous family. Polygamous, polygamous family. Polyandrous, polyandrous family. At every topic there, you should be drawing the picture. That is important. That I did not do in your booklet. This page I picked up from your booklet only. I'm sure. So while you are drawing a picture, it will be like more or less you are drawing something related to marriage only. But you are trying to depict there that we are explaining a family rather. Now the problem that might emerge is, if at all you have polygynous family. In polygynous family, multiple wives are there. If all the wives are living together, then that is one kind of a system. If all the wives are not living together, it is another kind of a system. But both of them are called a family. But living together, not living together, how do we differentiate that particular term? That will be our next topic, which we call domestic groups and households. That we will come to it later. Right now, maybe perhaps if we want to substantiate on polygynous families with multiple wives to the same individual, you may perhaps write one example each for people who are living together, people who may not be living together. I mean, all the wives living together, wives not living together. For instance, you have the same Sembagan chief is there. Sembagan chief is an example of polygynous family. So what he does is, he sees to it that all his wives live together. Generally when it comes to the chiefs, it's a rarity that you make your wife stay together. But because of that kind of an economic venture into which they should have to get involved together, maybe in order to bring that kind of a cooperation between them, all the wives are generally placed together. You have another kind of a system like Polynesian chiefs. In Polynesian chiefdoms, what happens is, in Polynesian chiefdoms, first wife is given more importance. So if we enter the region where the chief and his wives stay, the first wife's hut will be much bigger, much pompously decorated on one side of the pathway, and then all the rest of the wives will be having their own residences on the other side. But still they all function as the one single family or maybe one single domestic group. We will talk about what domestic group is. So you'll have to remember that based on each of those criteria we are defining the family, and for each of them you have to give a picture which is the picture of the criteria itself, and then you should be able to write one or two examples for each of them as we get into locality, etc. Now, patrilineal descent gives rise to patrilineal family, matrilineal descent gives rise to, so that's where you are actually trying to write the descent group there. You are going to write the descent group. And there, whatever we must have mentioned in descent, what makes people follow this kind of a system? See, for example, if it is patrilineal descent, so you have a patrilineal family. Generally, it is said that where male's contribution is more to the family and he is the deciding authority, the tribe or the group tends to be patrilineal as well as patriarchal. So there are two criteria, sir. I must have said this earlier, but I am trying to bring it back. Locality rules, the one that is there, locality rules and descent depend on two criteria. Locality rules and descent depend on two criteria. One is who is contributing more to the economy. Second thing is whether the warfare is internal or external. I hope you follow what I am saying. Sir, it is not a huge question. It's only that for everything you should have a picture. All stamp size, small pictures. And then at each of them one example you will be writing. So for this question a separate preparation is actually not necessary. It is more than sufficient to know the criteria. But then back home this you will do in the assignment segment. This you will do in the assignment segment, typologies of family. You would liberally use the write-up that is given to you and then try to fill the pictures. What I was saying was the type of family, type of descent and locality depends on two criteria. One is the contribution of male or female. Who is contributing more? If female is contributing more, it becomes a matrilocal. It becomes matrilineal. And then similarly, what kind of warfare they have? Is it the internal warfare or external warfare? I remember Ember must have given a picture there. If at all that is there, I'll try to circulate to you. In that picture, he was trying to incorporate all this kind of a stuff. If those of you who have the textbook, you can refer to it. In the topic of kinship somewhere in the locality rules, he has given one picture that shows the relationship between the internal warfare, locality rules and dissent. Now going back, the meaning of internal and external warfare meaning, for example, it is a huge intertribal rivalry. For example, you have the northwest frontier province, Brahvis and Balochis, who are traditionally rival groups. Two major tribal communities that are rivals to each other. That is generally called external warfare. Whenever there is an external warfare, there is a considerable amount of time for you to en masse your people, to prepare yourself for the war. This is not going to be a small or sporadic one. When it is a two major groups fighting among each other, a lot of preparation and then things like that. And then there is a considerable amount of time so that they are far off from you. In such cases of external warfare characteristic existing, locality may be matrilocal. So it goes unsaid that it is men alone who would fight. They can be in the female's house, but when an external warfare emerges, you can be called, you can be summoned, and then you can be prepared. If the warfare is rather internal, you don't have such kind of a time. If it is inter-clan rivalries are there, Trobrianders are known for it. If inter-clan rivalries are there, then you tend to be having mostly patrilocal residents. That's the reason why we see in some of the societies there is this contrast existing. You have matrilineality but patrilocality. If contribution to economy or whatever traditional things are there that are flowing mostly from the descent of female, you are following matrilineage. But technically what might happen is when matri is dominating in that sense, you may tend to be having matrilocality also, but then they become patrilocal. If there is an internal warfare, I hope you have understood, this is a very tricky thing. That is the reason why in some of the Oceanian tribes we find this diversity existing. On the one hand, you have matrilineality and maybe occasionally matriarchy also, but when it comes to locality, they tend to be patrilocal, so that they can assemble fast and they can take part in the feud or war, whatever you call. You can give a brief justification about each of them, why ambilineal, why bilateral, etc. We must have used this word in the class, Avuncular locality, where maternal uncle is prevailing, so in that case. So you would have a two-step picture that you will give. So in the first level, the family may look like this. The boy is staying with the parents. This is phase one. Generally premarital. That is post-marital, phase 2. So you would actually be moving towards the maternal uncle. So locality would change, family also would change. That is avunculocal. You should be distinguishing neolocal with patrilocal. Generally, in patrilocal, you try to write good number of other kinsmen also. Don't simply write mother, father, children, that becomes a neolocal residence. You have the other ones very loosely set. where paternal authority is there, maternal authority is there, or something here. Composite family. It is here I would want to take you to the next thing. Bilateral family, the family structure changes from time to time rather. Bilateral is, generally what we said was, if I can draw the picture for you, I think this was the picture that was given. Huh? I know. Bilateralism where you are actually trying to trace ancestry through both the lines of descent. It is not that everybody would be staying together. All these people, they may be there, they may not be there. It's only that based on, see, this cannot be exclusively seen in itself. This can be followed along with the bilocal residence. Bilateral family, technically speaking, see, I was not discussing that here because I have to also talk about a domestic group. Every time when I say family, one of the deciding elements that comes up is who is living together. Now, when I look at bilateral or bilineal descent, you are actually tracing your ancestry from both the lines. For all technical reasons, it might bring down to maybe bilocal residence, in which residentiality you are living. Maybe partly you are living with paternal side or partly you are living with the maternal side. That you should be explaining there. There the picture may become difficult, a permanent picture may become difficult. This you would give and say that this kind of a family may exist in combination with other features, especially a bilocal residence. Who forms the part of the family at that point of time depends on maybe your locality. It is one and the same. Ambilineal is you change from time to time. Bilateral or double descent is one and the same. That's the same. So there are a few things that I would want to bring here. In order to explain something like a composite family, more than one father, one mother, offspring, linked with something. There are a few terms that I want to bring here. One is joint family, the other is extended family, third is composite family. అక్కడ పెద్దగా ఏం లేదు బాధపడడానికి. So two kinds of terminologies you must focus. One, I said, joint family, extended family, composite family. This is one set. Second set we should be talking about is family, household and domestic group. Both these generally, if at all he is asking to distinguish one from the other, the questions may be for 10 marks alone. So a clear understanding is very much necessary. And even while you are answering the other questions, if at all you are making a mistake in using the terms as if they are interchangeable, there is going to be a problem. In joint family, see, the moment we say joint family, it is generally, globally considered as the Hindu joint family. They need not define it that way. But even without saying, it means it is a Hindu joint family. Meaning that it is that family system where you have patrilocality, patrilineality, patriarchy, all three coexisting. But still I haven't still defined. This is that system where patrilineality, locality and authority, all three coexist. It is a system that is based on the ideal of jointedness. A system that is based on the ideal of jointedness in terms of the same shelter or house, same kitchen and same purse. When I am giving these three, I am giving the definition based on Airavati Karve. I repeat, joint family functions on the ideal of same shelter or household, same kitchen and same purse. Same purse. And thirdly, sir, I am defining joint family. I said two things so far. One is the kind of a family system where coexistence of patrilineality, patriarchy and patrilocality exists. The second one we said this is based on the ideal of same shelter, same kitchen and same purse. And the third one is as with regard to locality rules, and with regard to membership in the family, this is that system where the eldest male member with his wife lives together with all his sons, married and unmarried, with their wives and children and unmarried daughters, may also include widowed daughters and their children. You must have seen your own families, no? You're writing about your own family there. So it is with regard to locality and membership in the family, it includes the eldest male member, his wife, living with all his male children, married, unmarried, their wives and children, unmarried daughters, and may also include widowed daughters and their children. That is a jumbo group. And it is not simply that. Jointedness is very crucial there. So the principle generally operating there is, as Airavati Karve says, everybody according to their capacity would earn and contribute. Everybody according to their capacity would earn and contribute. And each one based on their necessity gets from the purse. Should I repeat? Everybody, according to their own capability, would earn and contribute. And then, each one, based on their necessity, receive from the purse. అప్పట్లో దాసనారాయణరావు సినిమాలు వస్తూ ఉండేవి చూడండి. తలకాయ నొప్పి, ఏం చేయలేము. అన్నిటికంటే నేను నిలకడగా చూసిన సినిమా తాళి. అసలు తాళి ఎప్పుడు తెగుతుందా అని చూస్తూ ఉండేదాన్ని. అది తెగదే అది. ఒసే రాములమ్మ ఒకటి. ఇప్పటికీ ఆ పాట వస్తే అసలు ఆగేదే లేదు అసలు. అసలే వినాయక చవితి సంబరంగా ఉంటుంది. Basically, at the end of every month, on the first of every month, when you get salaries, you should bring and give it to the father, the old man. So he would maintain the common purse, the lady would maintain the keys. I never understood the keys philosophy. That's like ఏదో పెద్ద ఎస్టేట్ మెయింటైన్ చేసినట్టుగా ఒక రకమైన ఆ తాళాలు గుచ్చిపెట్టుకొని అసలు ఏంటో. In which generations we are living, I really don't understand. But then that is a symbol of authority rather. That's a symbol of authority. దాంట్లో చూస్తే ఏం ఉండవు మళ్ళీ. So remember, sir, the common purse, he is a deciding authority. Living together becomes important. Sir, in the write-up that is given to you in your booklet, I have incorporated this question, as I said earlier, the changes in the joint family of India. When changes are occurring, this particular thing in the joint family, because of some external reason, if one segment of it is getting broken, is getting separated, technically, based on Carvey's idea, if a segment gets separated, the entire thing would collapse because it affects the ideal of jointedness. But still, people say that, see, because it is necessary, we cannot do away with it, and hence we are forced to get out and work. But for all practical purposes, we are associated with the same big thing. So when you have got a job outside, you are moving out with your wife, and maybe perhaps your children also will be staying with you. But then you may be sending back the monies that are required, and then maybe some junior fellows in the family, your brother's children, they have to study in the urban area, you are housing them in the urban area, maybe you are trying to assist in various other ways. So it is in a way trying to maintain that connectivity. So people try to justify saying that the jointedness is still there, and hence even if we are not staying together, not having the same kind of a kitchen and shelter, for all practical purposes it is still called a joint family, but in a modified form. I leave it to your own genius. To what extent the jointedness can be maintained, or should we have to agree at one point of time that yes, this has been given up, and then maybe perhaps we have moved on to the other thing called a joint family, a nuclear family. We will come back on that because the journey didn't stop there. Nuclear families, though people say that they are the thing of the present, I think at many places they are also becoming a thing of the past. We are moving on to the next things also very quickly. The changes are coming not in the form of evolution, but they are coming in the form of a revolution, and then maybe at a very fast tornado level basically. Every other cultural thing is getting siphoned off in the huge changes that are occurring. When was the first time you challenged your family? When was the first time you challenged your family? They asked you to do something, you were tooth and nail against it. Career choices. అంటే ఎంతవరకు వచ్చింది? వైలెంట్గా బాగా పుడిసేసుకున్నారా లేకపోతే లేదు? 17 ఏమని? విషయం ఏంటి? ఆవిడ గురించేనా? అమ్మ ఆవిడ వచ్చింది అని. Let me take you elsewhere. I was trying to explain these three words: joint family, extended family, and composite family. Sir, extended family is simply an extension to the nuclear family. An extension to a nuclear family. The extension may be addition of a member or two, or maybe addition of another nuclear family. Extended family is a nuclear family getting additional members. It may be one or two additional members, or maybe a complete, a new extended, another extended family getting linked to it. Right now I am not using different other terms to explain this, but I would try to give a picture. Simplest kind of extension can be that, because she is no more there. Or maybe perhaps, I am not calling this a joint family because, number one, he is not the authority. Number two, several other siblings are not included there. So actually a nuclear family where the grandparents might be staying with the nuclear family. And in today's times, they are not the permanent members. They are not the permanent members. Vaatalu eskoni mukkలు చేసుకొని పంచుకుంటాం కదా అట్లాగా. They are not the permanent members. This could be one. The second one may be there is, say, the other nuclear family that is to stay together. If they are staying together, they are siblings actually. This doesn't actually look like something largely different from a joint family, but no, it is very much different. Whenever you want to stay together in an extended family, that may be because of some particular temporary benefit. Some particular temporary benefit. Maybe you would want to cut down on the rent in the urban area, or maybe the kind of logistical support you require, emotional support you require. So that may be a brief period of time. It may be that of siblings generally, or it may be nuclear families of individuals that are related to one another. So you may not be immediate brother and sister, maybe some kind of a relative, an uncle and aunt, his children, and yourself with your nuclear family living together. So it means it is also an extended family. And every time it need not be like, in an extended family, every time don't think that his parents alone. These days this phenomena is increasing. Whose parents will stay with us? And most often the female wins. I hope you have understood. Two nuclear families or two or more nuclear families of connected people, meaning of kin groups, living together for a temporary ad hoc necessity. And when I'm saying ad hoc, the jointedness is very feeble. You're not having the same kind of single authority and then single purse, etc. Many times even the single kitchen may also be not there, may or may not be there. Purse will definitely be not one. There is definitely a contribution based on necessity, not based on capacity. Previously what we said was, I can earn more, the other person may not be able to earn more. I being a younger brother, maybe I'm earning more. My elder brother is not earning more because he didn't study. He wanted all of us to study, 7 of us to study. So along with our father, he used to go to the farm and do kinds of things. So he is not an educated fellow, but I studied a lot, and my other fellows also studied a lot. All of us are earning huge, and he is not earning huge, but all of us would be contributing. And then the father would decide, the eldest brother has got 5 children, though his contribution is limited. I have only 2 children, so I get less, he gets more. Very unjust actually. That you did not realize till your wife told you. Composite families where a man may be living with more than one wives with their children, or a female may be living with more than one husbands with their children. This you should not forget. Instead of using some kind of a word, if you are using composite family, it will be dangerous. There is one other word people use called complex families. Anything in addition to nuclear family can be called a complex family. Anything in addition to nuclear family. So that may be a uh, composite family, that may be an extended family. Complex. Complex is any addition to nuclear family. Nuclear is simply हम दो हमारे दो. One wife, one husband. Nobody else to interfere. But generally, in the writing, I have said living together because that becomes a primary clause for family. If you're not staying together, difficult to be called a family actually. In the same city you are staying, your wife and husband, you might be having your own reasons, office se dur ho raha hai or some other reason. She took an apartment on the other side of the city, you have taken an apartment in the other side of the city, you are staying happily. Once in a while phone कर रहे हो, बात कर रहे हो, then कभी कभी lunch पे मिल रहे हो, ice cream खा रहे हो. But then finally, who is going to which home at the end of the day? That's where is the problem. That's why we generally put it as. Anji sir? That's why we call them exceptions. Exceptions can't be generalized. That's the kind of family they have. Or maybe, in yesterday's class we were seeing other exceptions also. Kibbutz are there, or though they are not staying together, as long, because that's a cultural choice. That's a cultural choice. I'll move on to the other three terms: family, household, domestic group. Or maybe I should give the correct sequence: family, domestic group, and household. Family, domestic group, and household. The three terms are given in your syllabus. He says the three terms distinguished. Sometimes everything boils down to writing the definitions alone. If the definitions are incorrect, you won't get marks. And see, I asked you to remember Murdoch's definition because that can be used for any kind of question in the exam, in the syllabus. Read out what Murdoch said, definition. మీరు రాసిందే చదవండి, పక్కలో చూడకండి, మీదే చదవండి. దొరికిందా? వేరే నోట్సా? ఏమ్మా బంగారం చదవండి.
A social group characterized by common residence, economic cooperation and reproduction. It includes both sexes, at least two of whom maintain a socially approved sexual relationship and one or more children own or adopted.
అదన్నట్టు. That you will have to remember without any problem. Talking about residence, economic cooperation, sexual cooperation, at least for two people in that, and then it is the kind of group wherein children, adopted or owned, live together. This is family. I don't think there should be any problem with that. Domestic group refers to living together of different kinsmen. Domestic group is living together of different kinsmen on a temporary or permanent lines. Living together of different kinsmen on a temporary or permanent lines. When I am saying different kinsmen, it can be a combination of several nuclear families. Nuclear families with certain other people attached to it, but definitely there should be kin groups. It looks something like an extended family. It looks something like an extended family. So extended family may be an example for a domestic group. Extended family can be an example for a domestic group. So domestic group refers to kinsmen living together on an ad hoc or a permanent basis. See, your parents are there in the village doing their stuff. Yourself, your brother, yourself, your sister, you are staying in the city, pursuing some goals. So, at least for the purpose of, at that moment, if we are considering, you can be called a family in yourself. You can be called a family in yourself because of the kind of geographical separation that you have with the big family out there. No, but we are depending on them for all practical purposes. You may be called a domestic group. It may be a temporary, maybe a permanent arrangement. That is a domestic group. Definitely there should be a kin line attached to it. But if for the same setup, if two unrelated people or groups of unrelated people are trying to live together, definitely for an ad hoc reason, then that forms a household. Household can be defined as unrelated people living together for an ad hoc purpose. Nevertheless, what you should understand is, in order to refer to the residential setup of any of the groups, whether it is family or domestic group, or in this particular case the household, in order to refer to the locality, the residence in which you are living together, it can be loosely also referred to as a household. I repeat, if I am going by the technical definition of household, it can be seen as people unrelated living together for ad hoc reasons. But then, suppose I want to talk about the place where I am living, locality, along with my kinsmen, non-kinsmen, whatever kind of a setup in which I am living, I need to describe it, I need to talk about it. Such kind of a system we can loosely call a household. I hope you have understood. Specifically, if at all you are going to a pointed thing, you may say that unrelated people living together for some reason. But a household is also used elsewhere in the book. I'm saying this because we have seen earlier also that same term in the discipline has a different meaning when compared to outside the discipline, and occasionally the same term in different contexts might have different meanings. So the other context of household is whoever may be the members there, and the way you are living together, the fact that you are living together makes you a part of the household. So then household becomes a bigger entity within which there can be families, there can be domestic groups, etc. Am I there? No, what I'm saying is you can loosely call it. For example, a nuclear family is there. If you are trying to describe the setup of the nuclear family, you may call it, in my household, we as a nuclear family live. Or maybe in my household, our extended family lives. So here what happens is, in that entity, in that physical entity, whoever occupies, that can be called a household. Did I? That meaning has to be properly communicated in the answer. I hope both. You say that technical textbook reference meaning is this. Notes and Queries defines household as an arrangement where non-kin members are living together for an ad hoc convenience. That's an ad hoc. UPSC జీవితాంతం రాయవు కదా. UPSC ఉన్నంతకాలం టెంపరీగా కలిసి ఉంటావు. ఇంకేమన్నా ఉందా మనసులో? చెప్పండి రావు గారు. మనసులో ఏం ఉంచుకోవద్దు, ఏమైనా ఉంటే చెప్పండి. కెన్ ఐ గో? శేఖర్, కెన్ ఐ గో? Those are the three terms. So based on the kind of question, you can try extending. When I say a domestic group, you can give pictures there, a couple of examples you can give, saying that a brother and sister might, along with a nuclear family, staying together. That looks to be an extended family. Domestic group more or less functions there as a extended family. Whereas in the case of a household, so there may be a related ones living together or unrelated ones living together. Related ones living together forms part of a loose understanding of the household, but technically for the notes and queries, unrelated ones in an ad hoc setup staying together can be called a household. Those are the two meanings. That's what ends your answer there. All the two sets of terms clear? Composite family, joint family, and generally what happens is the moment you step out, when you start discussing with people outside, they must have read some XYZ source, they must have had their own knowledge. And people these days are untiringly trying to exhibit their knowledge. Vijnana Pradarsanlu. If they are getting into it, don't argue. Accept them, you're right, it doesn't matter. Finally, they'll take that to the exam. And you will take what you will have to. Because sometimes what happens is, as you start arguing, you might get convinced. If you are getting convinced on the factual things, you would lose the marks here. So we are not worried about winning the argument. Finally, we should have to take our whatever we have understood properly to the exam. So don't argue. Because many times people keep asking me, my friend said this, and first of all, you should have only one teacher. 10 మంది టీచర్లను పెట్టుకుంటే ఎట్లా, ఒకళ్ళు నమ్మొచ్చు కదా. 10 మంది పిల్లలు కావాలనుకుంటే ఎట్లా, ఒకళ్ళు ఉంటే సరిపోద్ది. ఉన్న వాళ్ళని కరెక్ట్గా చూసుకోవాలి. మీరేదో అనుకున్నారు కదా, నాకు తెలుసు. Should I go to the other ones? I will give you a brief idea about what to incorporate in a question on changes in the family. And then you would, once the booklets come, you can read and you can enjoy. Right now, that work will be pending with you. So whenever you are picking up a write-up from any particular source, you should see whether the writer is focusing on exclusively one kind of a family system, or he is trying to write from the perspective of cultural uniformity. See, for that matter, questions might come in second paper generally. Even if he is asking in the first paper, he would say, comment on the changing family structure in India. In general, he doesn't ask. Don't consider India as largely a homogeneous group. That is one mistake many people do. And what we generally take it for granted is joint families died and nuclear families are flourishing, and that's where we are actually moving towards westernization. This is what is the general thing that we write. No, it's not that way. You would have to look for how different kinds of families are changing. Reasons may be one and the same, or reasons may be diverse. How different families are changing, meaning that some broad criteria you can pick up, maybe a patri and matri criteria. There are some families, some societies in India, some culture groups in India that are based on matri rules, matriarchy, matrilocality, etc., or matrilineal. How those are changing and how patri based ones are changing. And why the change might be coming. Most often it may be westernization, urbanization, migration, female education, the dangerous one, kind of. Occasionally, what the kind of governance we have, based on that also family is forced to change. Most often in the mainstream governance, we may accept patry-based families. When we are awarding schemes, etc., we may accept patry-based families as a rule, more or less. So in order to take a benefit of that, matry-based societies or culture groups have to make those kinds of changes. Or multiple partner families have to give away to single partner families. So I told you the two kinds of the different kinds of things that you should keep in mind. Number one is whether it is matry or patry based families, how they are changing with examples there. I have incorporated actually in the booklet one topic called changing matry based societies in India. I am expecting one question of that kind in the next couple of years. Oh, that article you should read thoroughly. So one I said, matry and patry based families, how they are changing. Second one is, uh, second one is no, those are all the reasons actually, urbanization or migration kind of things, those are all the reasons. Second one is how based on partners, multiple partner families, how they are becoming monogamous families, polygamous becoming monogamous. And then because we'll have to also address the general tendency of the people to look for this thing, that is how a joint family must have given rise to a nuclear family. Joint family giving rise to nuclear family, nuclear family. After that there are multiple routes. Till then there was only one route. So you'll write the whole lot of joint family there, picture, and then you'll write the nuclear family picture. Then you would say that there are multiple ways in which people started going. They may be single parent families. The single parent families may be because of that, or it may be because of, no, I don't want to get married, but then I would want to have a child, kind of a thing. Of course, adoption rules are changing now. You will have to see a male cannot adopt a female child. So while you're drawing pictures, be cautious about that. Single parent family, or maybe unmarried cohabitation. And now, of course, same gender cohabitation or marriage. And I am not bothered. I stay spinster, I stay bachelor. I am not bothered about the rest of the world. Single individual families rather. Aap khush alam dang. You are not really bothered about the rest of the world. See, what happens is, at the time of inception of any tendency, those don't seem to be so powerful. Those don't seem to be very overwhelming. But then over a period of time, as the tendencies grow, they become the order of the day. That's what was happening when joint family was giving rise to nuclear family. In small ounces it starts, and then in a big form it emerges. So maybe we have to see which forms are going to remain later. We will be beginning with your topic of religion. I'll just introduce it and check your syllabus once. And then I will show my favorite video. Look at the syllabus document. Approaches to study religion. Evolutionary, psychological and functional approaches. You have topics such as monotheism and polytheism. Have sacred and profane, ritual and what? Myth and ritual, religious functionaries, और क्या है? Forms of religion, fetishism, और क्या? Animism, animatism, totemism, kind of. और कुछ है? religion, magic and science distinguished functionaries. Beautiful topic. Spicy one. A lot of arguments, counter arguments, kinds of stuff. I must have made a mention in one of my earlier classes. We study religion in this subject not because we want to prove the existence or non-existence of God. We are not arguing on theism or atheism. We are only interested in religion as a part of culture. We are only reporting on different kinds of belief systems that are followed in different culture groups. So in the process, we are also trying to accommodate how one religion is accommodating the other, how one religion is being very strong-headed, hot-headed towards the others, kind of. We are looking at that diffusionistic tendency. What we would be doing is, I won't take long now. What we would be doing is, we would begin with a definition of religion. Can you give me one definition of religion? Taylor? Belief in super. You can't have any better, cuter definition than that. Belief in supernatural beings and spirits is religion. Belief in supernatural beings and spirits is religion. So he actually tries to distinguish between what are the supernatural beings and what are the supernatural spirits. It looks very beautiful when he describes as if he has seen all of them. So that challenges any sane mind. Insane though, anyway you will become later. The other day my son was saying this. I was wondering where he is learning this. He was saying, I'll tell you something. I said, what? मैं मेरा heart God को दे देता. I was curious, the next statement. मैं मेरा heart God को दे देता, and I'll give some gift also, surprise gift also to God. I asked what, he said, I'll give a car. Then, no, God, what will he do with the car? Then he says, he calls the maid, my God ka gift de raha hu, you take this car and you give to your child. I was wondering, of the whole thing, the first statement, मैं अपना heart दे देता. No, heart is something which I don't know, even now I don't understand what it is. Because I always am struck at a dilemma, mind and heart. People say you think with the heart, how you can think with the heart, where the thinking process happens in the heart. Technically, biologically, I don't think heart has that function of thinking. But then when you say that, think with the heart, how are you trying to do that? Kind of. Now, I think in the next couple of days, we have to give our heart to the God and then try to understand what he is up to. But before that, we would see this man. Maybe many of them can be called dysfunctions, so though we have placed them in functions.
They belong to that category.
So మీరు ఇష్టదైవానికి ఎప్పుడు దండం పెట్టుకోరు వెళ్ళి
ఎవరు
మీరు గుడికి వెళ్ళి దండం పెట్టుకునే ప్రసక్తే లేదు సెలబ్రేషన్ రోజు కూడా
ఇష్ట దైవం అనేది నా ఫస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ఆల్ దైవం ఇస్ ఏ పాయింట్ నాకు ఇప్పుడు నేను మొన్న ఎవరితో అన్నాను నేను దేవుడు నమ్మను వేరే విషయం దట్స్ ఓల్డ్ థింగ్ బట్ ఒకవేళ దేవుని ఎప్పుడన్నా నమ్మాల్సి వస్తే బెస్ట్ దేవుడు ఎవరని చూస్తాను బెస్ట్ దేవుడు నాకు
బెస్ట్ అంటే ఏ విధంగా
బెస్ట్ అంటే ఇప్పుడు బిగ్గెస్ట్ ఫిల్మ్ స్టార్ తో సినిమా తీయాలనుకోండి ఇప్పుడు మహేష్ బాబు పెద్ద స్టార్ సినిమా తీయాలి నాకు యాక్సెస్ ఉంటే కనుక మహేష్ బాబుతో తీస్తాను యాక్సెస్ ఉంటే దేవుళ్ళు యాక్సెస్ అందరికీ ఉంటుంది కాబట్టి అప్పుడు నేను జీసస్ క్రైస్తు తీస్తాను ఎందుకంటే అమెరికా అందరికన్నా బలమైన దేశం ఎకనామికల్ గా మైట్ వైజ్ గా అంటే విచ్ మీన్స్ జీసస్ క్రైస్ట్ ఇస్ వర్కింగ్ బెటర్ అన్న ఫీలింగ్ అప్పుడు మళ్ళీ దాంట్లో కకృతి ఎందుకు ఒక చిన్న దేశంలో చిన్న దేవుళ్ళ బదులు పెద్ద దేవుడికి యాక్సెస్ ఉంటే శుభ్రంగా క్రిస్టియానిటీ కూర్చొని అక్కడికి వెళ్ళిపోతాను
అంతే అంటారు మీరు చాలా ఒక తీవ్రమైన వ్యాఖ్య చేశారు దీని గురించి చర్చించే లోపు ఇప్పుడు మళ్ళీ
Sir, I will place this the other video and actually రామోయిజం అన్ని వీడియోస్ చూసాను నాకు బాగా వచ్చేసినా కదా అంతా చాలా మంది చూసుంటారు కదా చూడకపోతే చాలా పాపం చేసిన వాళ్ళు అవుతారు చూడండి Sir, there is one other video that I'll be placing in your Dropbox.
Why did Swami Vivekanand, one of the greatest preachers of Vedanta philosophy since the time of Shankaracharya, die so young? Just like Shankaracharya, Swami Vivekanand too did not live long and left his physical body at the early age of 39. Now, even though Swamiji, as he was called, suffered from many ailments such as diabetes and asthma, nevertheless, on the day of his passing, he was actually in good health and in a jovial mood during breakfast. So what caused him to die so young? Actually, behind the passing of every evolved soul such as Swami Vivekanand, there is a greater spiritual reality hidden which we ordinarily do not grasp. But luckily for us, Swamiji himself revealed the truth in great detail. About 6 years before his passing, sometime in August of 1896, Vivekanand confided to his brother disciple Swami Abhedanand that he was going to live only for 5 or 6 years more at most. How accurate was this prediction? For Swami Vivekanand passed away 6 years hence on July 4th, 1902. When Swami Abhedanand protested, saying a young man like him should not think of death, Vivekanand replied, "You do not understand. My soul is getting bigger and bigger every day, so much so that the body can hardly contain it. Any day it may burst this cage of flesh and bone." Now what did Swamiji mean when he said that his soul was getting bigger? Here is the explanation. The soul is nothing but pure consciousness. So what Swami Vivekanand meant was that his consciousness was expanding so much beyond the realms of ordinary human consciousness to the domain of the superconscious that the body was proving an inadequate container and would soon have to be let go. To better understand this point, let us delve into Vedanta philosophy for just a few moments. According to Vedanta philosophy, consciousness is a field which exists separate from the body. This field of consciousness is a continuum, which means that it goes on endlessly in all directions like an infinite ocean. For the sake of simplicity, I will draw it as follows. The yellow bar representing the infinite field of consciousness. Now our individual souls can be thought of as a portion of this continuous field of consciousness. Thus what we normally experience as human consciousness is only a small subsection of the infinite range of consciousness, the vast majority of which lies beyond the realm of ordinary human experience. Here I would like to point out that many times what we call as paranormal or psychic phenomena fall in this zone. This is similar to light, where we are able to see only a few frequencies out of the full spectrum, but certain insects such as bees can pick out many more colors. Now Vedanta tells us that different living beings experience different portions of this one continuous spectrum of consciousness. Take for example the ant. Compared to us, it has significantly lower amounts of consciousness. An ant is not aware of the traffic jam outside, nor does it worry about picking the kids up from school. In other words, the soul of the ant is in a state of restricted consciousness or limited awareness about the world. Many things exist beyond its ant world of which it is completely unaware. Now let us say that the soul or consciousness of the ant expands so that it becomes aware of more things. Then Vedanta tells us that the soul of the ant will find the small body and brain of the ant as insufficient to express its greater consciousness, and therefore it will manifest for its purposes a better body, say that of a cat. So according to Vedanta, this is how evolution happens. Underneath the chain of physical evolution of species is the spiritual reality of an expanding consciousness. This expansion of consciousness is the real engine which propels the entire train of biological evolution. Now in the evolutionary chain, you do not jump directly from an ant to a cat. Rather, there are many small evolutionary steps in the middle, but this is just an example to demonstrate the idea. In fact, in Hinduism, the soul is said to traverse through 8.4 million life forms before it attains to a human birth. But human beings too are not the final step in the evolutionary chain. In the case of human beings, our consciousness or our soul has gotten significantly bigger than that of animals, but it is still restricted. In fact, still beyond the realms of ordinary human consciousness lies a specific state of superconsciousness where our soul has become so enlarged that it has become infinite. In other words, from being a little portion of the ocean of consciousness, it has become the whole. This state, where the soul has become one with the infinite ocean of consciousness, also known as universal consciousness or God, this state of the soul is called by different names in different religions. In Hinduism, it is called Samadhi. In Buddhism, enlightenment. And in Christianity, salvation. The names may be different, but they all mean the same thing, and that is freedom or liberation from the evolutionary cycle of birth and death. For in this ultimate state of superconscious samadhi, the soul is finally free. Its infinite consciousness can no longer be confined to the finite body, and the body is let go. This state of samadhi was attained to by Swami Vivekananda, by his Guru Sri Ramakrishna, by Sri Aurobindo, by Ramana Maharishi, and in our present times by my highest Guru Sri Ram Sharma Acharya. This state of superconscious enlightenment was also attained to by Jesus and by Buddha, and this final state of freedom alone is the goal for all of us, right down to the little ant. This brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for watching.
So you see how the soul is expanding and body not fitting in the soul. So he tries to give a very beautiful explanation there. It is another way of understanding evolution, biological evolution. Biological evolution. This is another way of looking at biological evolution. Evolution was happening because the soul was not really happy. Soul feels that there is a congestion in the body, and hence it has to somehow get into a bigger one, bigger one kind of, and finally it's as simple as an ant has a smaller soul and a smaller body. So as the ant evolves with the bigger body and bigger soul, a time will come when you try to fit into the human body and human thinking and kind of a thing. But I did not get the explanation in between. There is an elephant also, there is something else also. So what will happen once the elephant thinks that no, my body is still not sufficient, that answer did not come there. Nevertheless, she or he is trying to explain it from ant to human. And how human soul gets that suffocation in the body and tries to get out, that is the time when you are trying to move up and move towards the supreme Brahma, the biggest fan kind of. Technical, chemical thing ela jarugutadi anedi వాళ్ళు explain చేస్తారు. మీరు చూడండి. That's where I would stop your class today. ఏమనుకోవద్దు, మీరేం 3 గంటల టికెట్ కొనుక్కొని వచ్చారు, నేను డాక్యుమెంటరీకి హాఫ్ అన్ అవర్ టికెట్ ఇచ్చాను ఇక్కడ. సో డోంట్ మైండ్. రేపు ఫుల్ క్లాస్ ఉంటుందమ్మా, రేపు ఫుల్ క్లాస్ ఉంటుంది. వీలైతే మనం సాటర్డే కలుద్దాం. 67 on 20th of September. We were talking about family, types of family. Family, domestic group and household. Nuclear family, composite family, extended family. You will be reading about changes in family system. And you are taking one in assignment, that will be typology of families. I repeat, the topics that we were talking about: types of family, family, domestic group, household, nuclear family, composite family, extended family, changes in the family system, and assignment is typology of families. Sir, before we say something there, there's one ICSC book on religion. There's one ICSC book on religion, some 7-8 pages. I'll place in your booklet. What they try to show is how different religions had diffused from one part of the world to the other. You just go through those 2-3 pages and come. Have a good time.